A new wave of legislation is quietly moving through state legislatures that could turn millions of concealed carriers into felons overnight. These laws don't just ban guns inside hospitals, they create massive 1,000-foot gun-free zones around hospitals and mental health facilities that you could violate without even knowing these buildings exist. Hit that subscribe button because Virginia just advanced HB 229, and 7 other states are considering identical legislation. These zones are so large that in urban areas, you could be prohibited from carrying in 30 to 40% of the entire city without any signs or warnings. Here's what happened. Virginia HB 229 passed the House on March 15, 2026, and is now in Senate committee. The bill makes it a Class 1 misdemeanor, up to 12 months in jail and $2,500 fine, to carry a firearm within 1,000 feet of any hospital or mental health facility. Similar bills are moving in Maryland, New Jersey, Illinois, California, Oregon, Washington, and Connecticut. Let me break down exactly what these laws do, how the 1,000-foot zones work, what the criminal penalties are, why these laws are likely unconstitutional, and most importantly, how to avoid accidentally becoming a felon. Number 1, here's what Virginia HB 229 and similar legislation actually does. These bills create gun-free zones extending 1,000 feet in all directions, from hospitals, emergency rooms, urgent care centers, psychiatric facilities, mental health clinics, and substance abuse treatment centers. That's not 1,000 feet from the property line, it's 1,000 feet from any part of the building. In practice, this creates a circular zone with a radius of over 3 football fields around every healthcare facility. And here's the critical part. You don't need to be on hospital property to violate the law. You can be on a public street, in a shopping center parking lot, or walking on a sidewalk and still be committing a crime. The Virginia bill has narrow exceptions. You can carry if you're a law enforcement officer, security guard specifically assigned to the facility, or have written permission from the facility administrator. But if you're a regular concealed carry permit holder, just driving through the area or shopping at a store that happens to be near a hospital, you're breaking the law. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video where I map out every hospital gun-free zone in Virginia and show you how to avoid them. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Number 2, here's how big a 1,000-foot gun-free zone actually is and why it's impossible to comply with. Most people hear 1,000 feet and think it sounds reasonable, but when you map it out, you realize how massive these zones are. 1,000 feet equals 333 yards. That's 0.19 miles. The radius of the circle is 1,000 feet, which means the diameter is 2,000 feet, over a third of a mile. The total area of one zone is about 72 acres, or roughly 55 football fields. In urban areas with multiple hospitals, these zones overlap and create huge sections of cities where carrying is prohibited. I mapped Richmond, Virginia with HB 229 zones. The result? Approximately 35% of the city center becomes a gun-free zone. In Northern Virginia near Fairfax, the overlapping zones from hospitals and mental health facilities cover nearly 40% of developed areas. But here's the worst part. There's no requirement for signage. Unlike school zones that have signs warning you're entering a restricted area, these hospital zones have no markers. You're expected to know where every hospital and mental health facility is located and calculate 1,000 feet in all directions while driving or walking. And mental health facilities are even more problematic. Many are in unmarked office buildings. Outpatient psychiatry clinics, counseling centers, addiction treatment offices all create 1,000-foot zones. And you have no way to know they exist unless you research every building in your area. Number 3, here's what the criminal penalties are and why they're so severe. Virginia HB 229 makes violations a Class 1 misdemeanor, the most serious misdemeanor category. That means up to 12 months in jail and up to a $2,500 fine for first offense. But the real damage isn't the jail time or fine. A misdemeanor gun conviction can cost you your carry permit, prohibit you from owning firearms, and create a permanent criminal record. In some states, certain misdemeanor gun crimes count as crimes of violence that trigger federal prohibitions under 18 U.S.C. 922G. Second violations are often upgraded to felonies. In Maryland's version of this legislation, a second offense within 5 years becomes a felony with up to 3 years in prison. That's a permanent loss of gun rights for unknowingly walking near a hospital twice. And here's what makes this even more dangerous. These aren't warnings or citations. If police discover you're carrying in one of these zones, maybe during a traffic stop, maybe because your shirt rides up and someone sees your holster, you're getting arrested and charged. There's no discretion built into the law. Quick legal note. This is educational information about proposed legislation in gun-free zones. This is not legal advice. If you're facing charges related to prohibited carry locations, immediately consult with an attorney who specializes in firearms law in your jurisdiction. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the 50,000 gun owners who get these legislative threat updates first, Click that subscribe button because next week I'm revealing which other states are secretly advancing hospital gun-free zone bills. Number 4, critical situations where you could unknowingly violate these laws. Scenario 1, driving to work. Your commute passes 3 hospitals. Under HB 229, your regular route requires disarming or facing 3 violations daily. Even with your gun locked in the console, you're breaking the law. Scenario 2, shopping. That target, 800 feet from a hospital where you've carried for years, now it's a crime. No sign tells you it's in a prohibited zone. Scenario 3, visiting friends. Their apartment is 900 feet from an unmarked mental health clinic. Every visit while carrying is a misdemeanor. Scenario 4, emergencies. Family member in the ER, you rush there forgetting you're armed. You park, enter the building. Multiple violations, even during a medical emergency. Scenario 5, unmarked offices. Walking past an office building with a psychiatrist on the 3rd floor. You're 500 feet away. You have no way to know, you just violated the law. Number 5, why these laws are likely unconstitutional under Bruin. The Supreme Court's Bruin decision established that gun regulations must be consistent with America's historical tradition of firearms regulation. The Bruin test requires government to identify historical analogs, regulations from the founding era or 19th century relevantly similar to modern restrictions. For hospital gun-free zones, this creates serious constitutional problems. First, no historical tradition of prohibiting firearms near hospitals. Hospitals existed throughout American history, but there's no evidence of laws creating large perimeter zones. Historical sensitive places were specific locations like courthouses, not massive zones extending hundreds of feet beyond property lines. Second, the 1,000-foot radius creates regulatory accretion, overlapping zones effectively banning carry throughout entire cities. Historical restrictions were narrow and specific. Third, the laws prohibit carry on public streets and property, not just hospital grounds. Bruin emphasized Americans historically carried firearms in public spaces. Gun rights organizations are preparing constitutional challenges. SAF will sue Virginia if HB 229 passes. FPC is monitoring similar bills. Based on Bruin, these laws are vulnerable. Number 6, enforcement reality and how police will use these laws. Police will use these zones for pretextual stops and searches, claiming someone was in a hospital zone as justification to detain and search. The laws create selective enforcement opportunities. Police could ignore some violations while targeting others. There's no objective way to enforce laws depending on invisible zones most people don't know exist. Practical impossibility of compliance. You need a GPS app showing every hospital and mental health facility with 1,000-foot zones marked. Even then, facilities change locations, new clinics open, and there's no public database. The bills don't address interstate travel. If you're driving through Virginia with a firearm locked in your trunk under FOPA, are you violating state law when passing within 1,000 feet of a hospital? The legislation doesn't clarify. Number 7, here's your action plan to protect yourself from these laws and fight back against them. Action step 1, track legislation in your state. Virginia HB 229 is in Senate committee. Maryland HB 823, New Jersey A 42234, Illinois HB 1467, and similar bills are advancing in other states. Know what's moving in your jurisdiction. Action step 2, contact your state legislators. These bills are passing in committee with little opposition because gun owners don't know about them. Call, email, and visit your senators and delegates. Tell them these zones are unconstitutional, unenforceable, and turn law-abiding carriers into criminals. Action step 3, map the zones in your area. Use Google Maps to identify every hospital, urgent care, ER, and mental health facility near your home, workplace, and regular routes. Mark 1,000-foot circles around each. See how much of your city becomes prohibited. Action step 4, join gun rights organizations that litigate. SAF, FPC, and state-level groups will challenge these laws in court. They need funding and members. Your membership supports the lawsuits that protect your rights. Action step 5, prepare for if the law passes. If these bills become law in your state, you'll need to make hard choices. Some gun owners will disarm when traveling in affected areas. Others will accept the risk and carry anyway, knowing the law is likely unconstitutional. Only you can decide your risk tolerance. Action step 6, document everything if charged. If you're arrested for violating one of these zones, document exactly where you were, what you were doing, and whether there were any signs or warnings. This evidence will be crucial for your defense and for constitutional challenges. Action step 7, support test case litigation. When these laws are challenged, support the plaintiffs. Donate to legal funds. Submit amicus briefs through organizations. Show up to oral arguments. These cases will determine whether these zones survive. Here's the bottom line. Virginia HB 229 and similar legislation in 7 states are creating massive 1,000-foot gun-free zones around hospitals and mental health facilities. These zones cover 30 to 40% of urban areas, have no signage, include unmarked facilities you can't identify, and make concealed carriers. Criminals for driving down public streets. Penalties are severe, up to 12 months jail, $2,500 fines, loss of carry permits, permanent criminal records. Second violations become felonies in some states. These laws are likely unconstitutional under Bruin. No historical tradition of banning firearms within 1,000 feet of hospitals. The zones are impossibly large, unenforceable, and prohibit carry on public property. You need to know if these bills are moving in your state. Map where hospitals and mental health facilities are in your area. Understand that 1,000-foot zones are huge, over 70 acres, and multiple zones can make entire cities gun-free. Fight back, contact legislators, support gun rights organizations. These laws won't survive constitutional scrutiny, but they can do damage before courts strike them down. Subscribe right now because I'm tracking every state considering these bills and mapping the gun-free zones they'd create. Share this video with every gun owner in Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, Illinois, California, Oregon, Washington, and Connecticut. They need to know these laws are coming. Remember, this is educational information about proposed legislation. Always consult with an attorney for specific legal situations. Don't let them turn you into a criminal for driving past a hospital. Fight these laws now. Thanks for watching.